Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com. I'm joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE Monday Night Raw. John, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Surprisingly, it was a pretty decent episode tonight, so it's better than what we've seen in recent weeks.
I couldn't agree more. Obviously, we will talk all about it before we do. Just want to remind you all of this show, like everything we do here at WrestleZone, is available on any number of streaming platforms or at SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, podcast, whatever it may be. We've got you covered. So leave a like and subscribe. Now, John, I got to admit, I feel a little refreshed tonight. I don't know. I guess, last week we were feeling pretty rough. Friday night we were feeling pretty rough because all the releases and everything. But now, good episode of Monday Night Raw. I feel a little better. Things seem a little brighter, a little more. The grass is greener on the other side of some of these things we've been dealing with recently. But I enjoyed tonight's show, especially if you consider some of the, just the pandemic era Raw that we've seen for months now. This was definitely a step in the right direction. I think that was the theme of the night. And we might as well just kind of dig into the main story here, the big thing, as Ricky Zaldivar, the comments saying, RK Bro is dead. I mean, Randy Orton was back on Monday Night Raw tonight for the first time in several weeks. He was gone for a while. Still don't really know why. It might have been a scheduled, I think, John, you said last week, sabbatical, essentially.
Yeah, 7 weeks.
Yeah, long time. And I hadn't realized how much I missed him. But I missed him. The show, I realized it's better with him, especially with where they seem to be going, or had seemed to be going with RK Bro. Whatever that may have been, I wonder if that's where the plan was, or I don't. Hindsight is 2020. I don't really know. Nestor saying when was on vacation. I mean, well deserved. Obviously, as a veteran, he deserves it. But yes, he was back on the show. He came out to start the show, basically saying he's back. Riddle comes out and says he missed his buddy, and he wanted to reunite RK Bro. And Orton was not interested. He turned him down, and then AJ Styles almost came out to set up the main event of Orton and AJ Styles and WrestleMania rematch. And Orton won. Riddle helped him out a little bit, and then they had a nice, kind of climactic reunion. They hugged. It was great. The crowd was going absolutely bonkers. And then Orton RK Bro'd Riddle. But Nestor is saying she doesn't think RK Bro is over. And JJ Albie, sorry if I'm not pronouncing the right, saying RK Bro is not even close to being dead. John, break it all down. What do you think about Randy Orton being back? What do you think all this means?
So I don't know what people were expecting. It sounds like people were expecting Orton to be on board with this. I wasn't. Were you? I don't know.
I guess I wasn't expecting this. When we last saw him, he and Riddle were a thing. They were a team, and it felt pretty clear, even if there was a kind of an oddball team, a reluctant team, it wasn't necessarily it wasn't this. I think that's fair to say.
Well, I do think they were throwing a curveball because I thought if they were going to have a SummerSlam tag match, we would have gotten more build to that tonight. You only have 1 week to build this match now if you're going to do it, so I don't see it happening, unfortunately. But Orton has to be on SummerSlam in some capacity, you would think. So do they do a Randy Orton versus a Riddle match somehow? I don't know. We've seen matches before, say Orton could face Riddle, and it's if Riddle wins, then they have to be a team. Something like that has happened in the past. Where do you see this going next weekend?
I think I would agree that it would feel pretty odd to go from this closing angle of Orton RKOing Riddle to the SummerSlam match that you and I have been talking about for months now. That we had kind of thought this was the direction. So I like the idea of doing maybe a singles match. I think that'd be fun. Although at the same time, in a way, I guess because of Orton's vacation hiatus, whatever you want to say, that I would have wanted that to have a more kind of prolonged build up, and it has, but having that kind of, as you said, 7 week gap there, that is not ideal. So maybe a singles match is the best they could do at this point, and then depending what they want to do, maybe they do a tag title match at whatever the next pay-per-view is, or maybe we don't get RK Bro. Maybe this is where we're going. Again, we got several comments saying that not necessarily thinking RK Bro's over. Some comments saying predicting RK Bro, or not predicting RK Bro will get the titles at some point.
We've seen them do things before where they've released merchandise for teams that haven't lasted very long. If you remember the Y2 AJ stuff,
right?
They only lasted a month, and they had a shirt too. So I could see it being done. I just don't think it is.
Yeah, and I mean they do have some options, albeit not necessarily ideal. Stephen Chambers saying they could do a rematch of Viking Raiders versus Styles and Omos. I don't think that'd be great, but it could be a good pre-show match. You've got Mansoor and Mustafa Ali, although they've been kind of on a losing streak here against Mason T-Bar of all people. So I don't know. I guess I would be ironically maybe a little surprised if we did see RK Bro challenge the titles at SummerSlam here. But I like the idea of as you said, putting the ability to team up as the match stipulation there. But I don't know. Some other comments saying maybe put Orton in the world title scene. You and I have been talking about kind of in a post SummerSlam landscape. Where does Bobby Lashley go, assuming he beats Goldberg? And I think Randy Orton would make a lot of sense. So maybe that's one option they could do. Yeah, I mean I think they have options. I think that. It's not one of those necessarily kind of a win-win scenario. I think there's, I don't know. It's a weird like. I guess I've got to accept this is what we are. I still kind of wish we'd gotten that.
It's unpredictable, really.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, for our 12, we're sitting here for Raw saying, "Oh, we know this is going to happen," and that's true for some things we've seen tonight. I should say we saw it tonight on Raw. You think about obviously Bobby Lashley Goldberg. To me, I feel, and just kind of throughout the show, a bunch of things you can kind of predict. This is not one of them. So I do like that air of just unpredictability, and it keeps you guessing. I thought this is, I mean, regardless of what they do, I think this is one of the best things they're doing on Raw right now. Just for going from the team to now Orton's back, and you have the will they or won't they, and they really built up nicely throughout the night. They had this kind of fun like best friends video package kind of thing, hyping up the main event. And I've talked about it before. I really like when they do these kind of branching storylines of like segment one, and then maybe something throughout the night, and another thing, and then the main event. I always like that. So. I thought this was good, and I think it's because it's the highlight of the show. So kind of hard to call where it's going next. SummerSlam is 1 week from Saturday, so actually no, right? Yeah, no, that.
Yeah.
I lost track of time there.
12 days.
Okay. Time flies. Yeah. So they still have a little time. They do have next week, so. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I think they've got a couple of good options on the table, but it is SummerSlam, and you do know that they probably want to do something pretty big there. Now we're talking about RK Bro being dead or not dead. Something else that is apparently dead. Elias, not in a literal sense, but we got an unexpected vignette on Raw tonight. Very brief with Elias coming out. It was a little video segment. There was a fire. Elias was kind of looking back on all the times his guitar has come back to bite him. People hit him with the guitar and stuff. We haven't seen Elias since the first Raw Back with Live fans back in July. He lost to Jackson Riker in a Sympathy of Destruction match. And in this little vignette, basically he said WWE used to stand for a walk with Elias, but Elias is dead. He threw the guitar in the fire. So Elias pretty clearly going to go through some pretty major change here, John.
Yeah, this is very interesting because he's been losing a lot.
Yeah.
So now he's going away, but to do what? I mean, I'm not sure what. We haven't really seen him do anything else before.
I mean, I at least in a vague sense, it would seem to suggest he's kind of dropping the musical stick, even though that is his thing. So I feel like we are going to get a Stark.
Maybe
departure.
he'll just be the Drifter again without the guitar.
Thought of that, yeah. And I couldn't help, even just kind of the look, and that's what DJ Cassidy is saying. Go back to the Drifters NXT kind of gimmick there. I think that's possible, if not probable. I mean, I don't see why not. I don't know. Also, I'm curious. I always like these kind of vignette based things where it's kind of man. I feel like this isn't a one off. We might see a little elaboration next week. This is very, very vague. So we're just kind of shooting in the dark here. But Michael Kent saying Elias could come back with a darker gimmick, whatever that might be, maybe a dark twist on the Drifter gimmick. Luke Goddard was saying he'll turn into a singer instead of a guitar player. I mean, this seems kind of like totally throwing the musical stuff out. Like he was,
he's a pretty good singer, man. His album was dope.
It was good. I like that theme song. I was disappointed when they gave him a new one. Ironically, that was not too long before he disappeared for a couple of weeks. So See, I hope Steven Chambers. I hope he's saying he thinks we're going to get another Elias Riker match. Well, we haven't seen Jackson Riker in a couple weeks, have we? Not that I can recall. Which is interesting, because for quite a while there, they were really trying to kind of position him as a big star, or at least in the mid card. He tweeted he wanted to win the U.S. title. Not to say that it might not to say he could very well pop up next week. I just don't know. But for Elias here, anything's possible. Friends from Nando saying Elias was doing good when he was a face, singing along with the crowd, turned him heel again. It just kind of was that did him in. And I would agree. I think he was working pretty darn well as a face months ago, and they did turn him heel, and I thought that may have been a little regrettable. And he's flip flopped a little too often, and I could say that any number of people, but I think this would be good for him. I mean, fresh coat of paint. Whether it's this seems to suggest like a dark turn, like someone in the comments said. This does not seem like a face turn. I think that's possible, but this does seem like maybe something a little darker, a little different for Elias here. So I think that'll be good. Just kind of give him a fresh start, whatever that might look like. But yeah, well, if what happens with that. But yeah, another big thing that we saw tonight was Doudrop versus Alexa Bliss, and I can't help but thinking that Alexa Bliss versus Eva Marie is potentially something we could see at SummerSlam, and that is a very interesting clash of personalities to me. I mean, it's two of the most distinct, gimmicks or characters, I'll say, on Raw, in very different ways, of course. For the Evolution and Alexa Bliss and Lily. Obviously, Lily cost Doudrop the match here, which was interesting. And losing to a doll, not a great look, but it's good for Bliss to pick up a win. But the big thing that a lot of people were kind of honing in on was the "We Want Wyatt" chants, and I feel like unfortunately that's probably not going to go away anytime soon, as long as she has this character, right, John?
Give her a break. It's her birthday, man.
I know, it's terrible. It's disappointing, and it's not good to see kind of the performer being punished for the company's decisions or actions here, and not punished, but you can kind of imagine, especially on her birthday, probably doesn't feel very good where the fans are chanting for someone who's not even with the company anymore. That's a little disappointing, but Lily's back. She was gone for a while, but Lily's back, even with the live fans here. So they're still doing wacky stuff. She winked. They did the camera cut, and she winked. So she's alive and well. Not sure what to expect with that. If they do go through with Bliss and Marie for SummerSlam, do you think Bliss could win and potentially move on to the title picture? That's kind of what I would think.
Yeah, but I don't think this is going to be a match. At SummerSlam, anyway. I think this will be like on Raw. This seems like the perfect thing for Extreme Rules next month.
And why is that?
Because of that creepy, that gimmicky thing they did with the horror show last year. This just fits that. Yeah,
and maybe it's not the best fit for SummerSlam, but who knows? I mean, they're clearly kind of they seem to like what they've got with Lily, so maybe they do want to give her some kind of spot on SummerSlam. Although I think I might agree that might be a little better fit on a pay-per-view like Extreme Rules or the one after that. Who even knows? Another big surprise we got tonight was Baron Corbin being on Monday Night Raw, courtesy of the Brand to Brand Invitational. I will say I liked how they explained this. Basically, we know that Baron Corbin's fallen in very hard times. His life is miserable over on SmackDown, and he said that Jinder Mahal kind of recruited him almost as like a mercenary to kind of try and take out Drew McIntyre. These guys have a lot of history. That's a match we've seen a lot, but for me, that wasn't a bad thing. I mean, they're good together. It's one of those kind of repetitive matches, but I liked it. And again, more
Brand
so.
to Brand Invitational, man.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that they seem like they only use it when it's convenient, and although they supposedly only are able to use it 4 times a year. But I thought I just like that reasoning, the logical motive for having this match, King Corbin or Baron Corbin wanting to have one last chance to really get a win, to get back on the winning ways here. So I like that. McIntyre won. A little creative here at the end where Corbin begged for mercy, begged for money, and McIntyre did kind of a modified Claymore 3-2-1 count with the money he'd be willing to give or not willing to give Corbin. It was fun. It was fine. I'm still liking this Baron Corbin stuff. it was fun to kind of have a crossover to Raw a little bit, obviously as a one-off here. But what I mean, we're doing this is the Raw show, but because he's on the show, it's worth asking. John, what do you think about this stuff with Baron Corbin and where he could be going next?
I think he needs to take a couple weeks off and then kind of just come back like even in worse shape than before. Let his beard grow out, let his hair come out, and just look all scruffy. And I mean, this has to lead to a face turn, but how you get to that point, that's way beyond me. I have no idea.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see how they can get to that point.
That's something Robert and I talked about on the SmackDown show. It's like they have the news about the trademark for Happy Corbin. Supposedly, you would think that might be where they're going, and then I don't know how we get from point A to point B. DJ Tessier wondering about potentially a pairing of Baron Corbin and Elias. I mean, I think I would agree that we're probably somehow heading toward a face Baron Corbin, and was we were talking about earlier. I see Elias going down a darker path, so I'm not quite sure about that. I think that there are worse things to do than pair two talented performers, but I feel like they are kind of heading in different directions here. But Gavin Coombs saying, maybe the Helix idea of them as a tag team, maybe like a Cowboys kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're very much on two distinct paths like that. Seems they was wondering about moving Corbin to Raw, maybe in the draft. I mean, he's the kind of guy that could do just fine on either brand. He has been on SmackDown for quite a while, and he has kind of bounced back and forth between Raw and SmackDown a couple of times with the brand stuff. He was on Raw earlier this year as an honorary member of the Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley for a little bit. I think that was like 2 weeks. But I mean, I just in general, of course, we can hope for the draft to kind of shake things up. But that's still at least I think about 2 months away at this point. So we got to stay in the here and now. But I mean, overall, he just get into the general for a second. Like, I thought the match was really good tonight. I thought the promo was really good tonight. We saw, and granted, there was nothing groundbreaking. We've seen McIntyre and Corbin a lot. We got a match with Damon Priest and John Morrison. We've seen that a lot recently. I thought it was a good match, and that led to Damon Priest challenging Sheamus officially for the U.S. title at SummerSlam, and Sheamus accepted. So, John, now the match is official. Would you say it's fair to expect Priest to win at SummerSlam? Absolutely.
I would be surprised if it went otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the situations that feels like the writing's on the wall. He was gone for a while for injuries, and now he's back. So it feels like that's definitely one good way to kind of elevate a newer star on Raw. And Chris agreeing that Priest should beat Sheamus.
The real question is, how did The Miz run away?
That was one of the best moments. So we had that was Priest versus Morrison. Miz, of course, at ringside. America's Most Wanted. Miz in the wheelchair. He's got the drip stick. Good match with Priest and Morrison. And then near the end, Miz was distracting Priest. He had the drip stick, and Priest came over and confronted Miz. And Miz stood up and ran away. The guy with the supposed torn ACL. I guess it's healed. I mean, that was
it's been 5 months now.
Wow. Time really does fly, huh? I mean, that was back at WrestleMania Backlash, so I guess clearly we saw him run. You can't fake that. So I guess Miz is healed. DJ Tessier saying yes, so that he's good as new. So I guess the question really is now, where do you see Miz and I guess potentially Morrison going from this? Now that Miz is cleared.
I still want to see these two break up. Have we got confirmation that he's cleared?
Not confirmation, but he ran, man. He was booking it up the ramp.
They need to break up, I think, at some point. But what they got going on, I guess they think is entertaining. So I don't have any other plans for them besides them breaking up.
Yeah, I would agree. It's weird that it's just weird to me that like I've thought for months that Miz and Morrison. The same way that it used to go. You have Morrison turn face and kind of do something like that. But here we are. I think it was an interview with Frankie Monet where she was apparently saying that John Morrison he's had this Johnny Drip character in the works for like 2 years, at least 2 years now. This is something that he's like very passionate about. He's enjoying a lot. So it may not even be like the company or just on the company. He might be the kind of thing where John Morrison really wants to like roll with it. So, it's weird because to me that is a very distinctly like heel character. It's very obnoxious. He's working moist and wet and splash and whatever in every sentence. I think that there's a lot of money on the table to be had with a Miz and Morrison feud. But like we're saying about Baron Corbin, I don't know how we get there. Because neither guy really feels like a clear face or even like near face right now. RK Bros can't. That's very different. Like you could very clearly turn Orton face, or even I guess potentially Riddle heel. But here it's like they're both pretty clearly heels. So I'd like to see them feud, but I just don't know how we get to that point here. So I think that's something that's one of the best things we could kind of hope for on Raw, because they're two very talented stars. I'd like to see that. That's something that I think it's long overdue at this point. So I do hope we get to see that at some point soon. Did you say one if we could see Morrison turn Miz anyway? I mean, it's possible. Maybe Miz was hiding the fact that he's cleared, something like that. I don't know. I like to see it. I think that'd be one. What we've talked about it before. That's one way to kind of potentially kind of elevate Morrison and maybe have him potentially even challenge for the WWE title. I think that's something that we could see in the not too distant future if they play the cards right. So, I mean, but yeah, that was definitely one of the bigger surprises we saw tonight. And another big program, of course, is the Raw Women's Title triple threat match for SummerSlam. It's Nikki A.S.H, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley. I liked that we got a promo from Ripley. Again, the promos were on point tonight. That we got Ripley saying basically that Nikki A.S.H, she doesn't have a dark side. That you need kind of this balance of light and dark for being a champion, and makes sense to me. And to kind of like coincide with that, they had a promo with Nikki A.S.H saying, well, what is she? She said something like, my nightlight is my spirit or something like that. And I was like, oh man, like, come on. I mean, I don't know. I'm still riding this fine line where this Nikki A.S.H stuff, it's like, I'm rooting for the person, and I'm glad that the Nikki Cross or Nikki A.S.H, the person, is doing well, but I'm still not really on board with the character and some of her lines here. And another line that Ripley had was saying that almost isn't good enough to be a champion. Like, and the whole shtick here is that it's almost a superhero. So it's still not quite sitting right with me, especially now she is the champion. And I think I said this last week. If you're the champion, shouldn't she be a superhero now? Like, I don't know. Some's not quite working for me.
I agree with Stephen Chambers that he says that Charlotte should win. I think she should, and I think they're setting her up to win. Who's your favorite right now with this?
I mean, we talked about it a little last week, and I guess nothing we saw tonight would really make me think any differently. I don't think it's Nikki A.S.H. Ripley, maybe, but at this point, it could just be Charlotte to kind of boost those championship reign numbers, and maybe give her a longer reign with the title this time. Makes sense to me, And of course, and that's speculation being about Becky Lynch. Supposedly, she's not actually going to come back until the fall. Now, speculation means she could be at SummerSlam. I think she could just be backstage. I don't think there's anything really to that. That's just my belief. I don't know anything about that, obviously. But I think Charlotte's the most likely. But DHKSA is suggesting that Nikki A.S.H could win, forces Charlotte to change brands. Maybe do Charlotte versus Bianca Belair over on SmackDown. I think there's something said for that. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
I think that we're going to see a good match, but I think that if Nikki does drop the title, I don't think she'll be involved in the decision.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. And then, because you said you set up a natural rematch for her, regardless of the draft, potentially moving one of the three women to another brand. I think that would make a lot of sense as well. Something that both did and didn't make sense tonight: Karrion Kross versus the returning Jeff Hardy, the NXT champion, picking up a win here. Good match. At least I was thinking throughout the match here, at least they're actually getting time. Of course, Hardy beat Kross in his Raw debut, and then Hardy unfortunately tested positive for COVID-19. So he was gone for at least 2 weeks there. Kross kind of had a brief little feud with Keith Lee.
This was not Karrion Kross's first win, DJ. You're saying that we saw Kross get his first Raw win. He beat Keith Lee, didn't he, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
But
he beat Jeff Hardy here. And, for me, it's the kind of general narrative I saw, or the consensus I saw on Twitter, and my thoughts as well. Why have Kross win here when, when he lost Hardy, and there's something kind of missing here where, and part of it's kind of the fantasy booking aspect where after he lost, the thought was, you could have Cross kind of on a losing streak, and then bring Scarlett in and kind of have that boost his confidence. Now Cross has won without Scarlett, and that kind of, I don't want to say like lessons her importance to the character in that sense, but I don't know how you kind of. I don't know. It feels like a missed opportunity. I would agree with Nash saying he needs Scarlett. I tweeted that during the show. He needs Scarlett. Like the way they're presenting the character, it's not the same guy that we see on NXT. I'm still not really digging it nearly the same way. I think he'd be much better off with Scarlett. I don't know why they haven't brought Scarlett up yet, up to Raw. But we might as well address this question from French Nando. How do you save Cross on Raw at this point, John? Even though he's winning, even though he's won 2 matches now.
Well, he won. Yeah, I don't think he needs to be saved right now. I think that what needs to happen is they need to keep building him and making him look good. Look, there was an inkling tonight where I thought that maybe Samoa Joe was going to come out and confront him, but then I was like, that's probably too far-fetched.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Of course, all the headlines over the weekend here with NXT and all the potential rumblings of some changes there. I couldn't help but kind of think, I guess I have that maybe a little inkling. We saw T-Bar defeat, I think it was Mustafa Ali in a singles match, and the report over the weekend being that NXT kind of reprioritizing big guys, kind of very much a throwback to maybe the way that WWE used to do things, and having T-Bar defeat Mustafa Ali. I don't know. I kind of had this. I couldn't help but think of that and wonder, like, are we kind of seeing that unfold on Raw as well? Where you're having a big guy, Mason T-Bar, not only in the singles match, but they also won last week as well. So, food for thought, something to think about, and just kind of wondering whether that might be a, kind of a whole organizational kind of reshifting of the philosophy here. But what do you think about what we're seeing with Mason T-Bar picking up wins here, and also on the flip side, Mansoor Mustafa Ali?
It's all confusing, and I have no idea what they think they're doing. Maybe they're trying to just lead and continue this Ali Mansoor story. Mason T-Bar are not viable contenders for the tag titles.
No,
and I would never believe that.
No, I've said it a couple times, not to knock the talents. I think they're both very, very talented, but they are quite literally. They're presented like the Ascension 2.0. They had a promo before the match saying like size doesn't matter, size does matter, and this promo about like the food chain, all the very, very like Mad Max cross with the Ascension. Like it's weird, man. I don't know. It's weird because I feel like there is definitely this opportunity to have Mansoor Mustafa Ali. They're gelling as a team, and not to say that it would make sense to have them win every match either, but they're not kind of on this losing streak, and I think that they could be booked a little stronger because, as we were talking about before, you definitely need to kind of maybe add some depth to the tag division there. So hopefully they'll start to get some wins soon. Someone who didn't win tonight, but at least escaped with a title, so I guess that's a moral win. Reginald, who somehow has 33 million, I think it was 33 million likes on TikTok. My gosh, like I think we talked about this last week, but when we know people love flips, but I didn't know
we're gonna keep getting it.
Man, that is crazy. We got just a little brief backstage thing where R-Truth and Akira Tozawa tried to do some hijinks and trick Reggie for the title, and he was flipping around doing some parkour, and he escaped. Basically the same thing we saw last week. If they can figure out ways to keep this fun and have them do flips in like fun, creative ways, I'm fine with it. It's fine. Again, the 33 million likes, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's obviously tailored towards the more acrobatic fans.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, you don't even need to like wrestling to appreciate someone doing cool flips and stuff. Like that is a good way just to kind of get some of those non-wrestling viewers, casual viewers, and like just see this dude doing flips. That's pretty easy to see kind of the line of thinking there. However long it might last, I don't know, but some reports have said that Vince McMahon is pretty high on Reggie, and again, seeing the guy get all these, social media numbers, it's easy to see why. So, I think it's fun. It's, as we said last week, it's something different in the 24/7 title scene. So I like that. But all of a sudden here, just kind of aside from that, in a more general sense, SummerSlam pretty quickly shaping up to be pretty good show on paper. We still have, like I said, John, 12 days. But you think about Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg. We got a Bobby Lashley promo tonight. Goldberg was not on the show, but it was mostly an MVP promo, basically saying about getting speared by Goldberg last week. It was like, hey, tell your son Gage, tell your father, don't come to SummerSlam. He's going to get humiliated. He was going to get just destroyed. And then Bobby Lashley said, at SummerSlam, you're not next. You're done. That was a fun closing line. Goldberg is advertised to be on the show next week, and that'll be the go-home show. So I'm sure he'll have another message or another spear for MVP and or Lashley. So still, I kind of week to week here, I still remain hopeful and pretty confident in my guess that Lashley's walking out SummerSlam with the title. And we were talking about Randy Orton as a potential contender earlier, but it does beg the question, assuming that Lashley does win, we're sitting here thinking, maybe a guy like Damian Priest wins the U.S. title, but there's definitely kind of a vacuum at the top. Assuming Goldberg loses and leaves out of SummerSlam, like who's next?
I could see AJ Styles if they drop the tag titles. Otherwise, I really don't know. This is going to come out of left field, probably. I mean, if Jeff Hardy wasn't losing so much, it could be him. He's getting pops.
I saw someone tweet that basically like kind of like we just said, if they booked Hardy stronger and if they set him up for that, that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily complain about giving Jeff Hardy that spot. He's popular, people like him, he's a veteran, he's respected. Fair to say, he's a future Hall of Famer. So I think that could be even as like a transitional feud. That could be something if he strings together some wins. Gavin Coombs with some comments predicting Karrion Kross. I don't think he's next. I think that's something that if they kind of reverse his fortunes here on Raw and kind of something like if they have him string together some wins, and I think that would take longer, as Hardy definitely does have a much more like a long-standing reputation, and he's a veteran, all that kind of stuff. Hardy's been a WWE champion before, so that's a very easy kind of motive to build that. So then along that line, to think of AJ Styles, think of Sheamus. If Sheamus loses the U.S. title, maybe that's something. We've seen, of course, Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre in the year. We saw, I think, Bobby Lashley versus Sheamus like maybe once or twice, but not in a real feud. So that might be something. Or Stephen Chambers protecting a champion versus champion thing with Damian Priest and Bobby Lashley. I think that's something. And of course, Mr. Money in the Bank Big E as well. Although I think he's more of a contender for Roman at this point. But no, you never know. I think that'd be cool though. I mean, the New Day was not on the show tonight, so it's one thing I think we've seen comments about in the past is that maybe bring Big E over to Raw and reunite the New Day. I think that's definitely something said for that as well.
Yeah, and then for those of you wondering, the dark match after the show is over was John Cena and Damian Priest teaming up to beat Jinder Mahal and Veer. So a little bit of an odd matchup there, but that's what they went with for the dark match tonight.
Yeah. But I think that kind of speaks highly of Damian Priest in terms of how they view him, putting him with John Cena. Of course, I think we talked about it last week as well. It's a little weird to have Cena advertise for the show, not have him on the show. I mean, of course, you advertise him for the fans that are there. And if you're advertising, you can't I don't feel like you can just advertise him for the show.
It just doesn't make sense for me to put him on Raw, though.
No, I agree. He's on SmackDown, Steve Roman. He's not going to be doing anything on Raw, but still, you still can't help but feel a little twinge of disappointment. He's there. You use him, have him do something. We saw the first time he was back, he had that little bro off of Riddle. I feel like even if it's just inconsequential, have him do something. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I just think that with a week to SummerSlam, they really want to get these feuds dialed in.
Yeah, and I was speaking to you a minute ago. I feel like we are. I still the only thing that I'm pretty unsure about at this point is RK Bro, and otherwise the card does seem fairly, if not settled, at least mostly settled with some likely contenders for some matches. I mean, like I said earlier in the show, I feel like we're likely heading toward Bliss versus Marie, maybe, although Johnny had said maybe not for SummerSlam. So yeah, I think the only real variable at this point is the Raw tag titles. But otherwise, you've got Bobby Lashley and Goldberg. You've got the SmackDown side pretty much set with Banks, Belair, Roman and John Cena. The SmackDown tag titles match is set, Edge and Seth Rollins. The Raw feels a little more open comparatively. But we do have next week as well. And of course, half the time they add like another 2 or 3 matches like the day before the pay-per-view. So, who even knows at this point. Fernando saying, trying to get fans to believe that Goldberg can be competitive with Lashley is like trying to convince people that Rey Mysterio could beat the Big Show in an eating contest. Nando, your comments are always top notch. We appreciate you. I mean,
well, what did you think of the show?
I liked it a lot. Like I granted, my thoughts last week, like I was just so down on Raw, on WWE itself, and just I hate to say it, but it's like it was, between Bray Wyatt getting released, all these things. I thought this tonight was a big step in the right direction. I thought the RK Bro stuff was great. I thought, even though some of the matches were repetitive, I thought they were good matches. I thought the promos were good. Like, again, Rhea Ripley made good points about Nikki A.S.H. Charlotte Flair, good promo after we had a match with Nikki A.S.H. and Rhea Ripley. Charlotte ruined it, so nobody won, and Charlotte stood tall. Good matches, good promos. I like we're going for SummerSlam. Assuming Bobby Lashley wins, I'm fine with that. Curious to see what happens with RK Bro. So if we're grading on the Raw curve, which granted, that's biased, but if I'm grading like just on like that Raw scale, I go this is like a 7.3 for Raw, which seems really high. That's how down I was on the show. I thought Orton versus AJ Styles was good. The RK Bro stuff was good. I was very happy tonight, and more. And again, I think I might be lifting that up higher than I might be otherwise, but I liked it a lot. John, what do you think?
Go with a 6.5 tonight, which is better than what I've given it in recent weeks. So like a 3 and a quarter, and then a 5, and it's getting better. The stories were starting to make sense. I would just like to see them utilize talent a little better and maybe make it a little bit more entertaining and compelling.
Yeah, and I feel like we're getting there. I think tonight was that step in the right direction. I'm hopeful next week will be more the same in that sense, more another step in the right direction, or a show like we saw tonight. And it feels like based on the comments here, definitely you guys are agreeing in the comments. Stephen Chambers was 6.5. Cool to see Orton back. Needed that. I would agree. Michael Kent was 6.5. Ness Gross was an 8. Very high there, but I enjoyed it a lot. Harman Takari saying Raw was good. Jeremy Hansen was 7. Dan Greyhouse was a 6. So, definitely a big step in the right direction for the most part. Herman Takara with a 6, Nando with a 6. Tessier, kind of a, although, everyone's entitled their own opinion, saying worse than last week, giving it a 5. Not some people liked last week, so that means they may not like this week. I mean, again, it's very subjective. That is pro wrestling. So some people like it, some people don't on a week-to-week basis, and that's totally fine. Kevin Taylor with a 7.2 as well. So for the most part, it seems like we are perhaps back on track just in time for SummerSlam, and that is a very good thing. And Sean Smith with a 10. My gosh, 10. Hey, if you like it that much, more power to you. For me, I know I was pretty happy with it. So, I'm hopeful that this will continue next week. But regardless, John, whether it's better or not, we'll be here next week to talk about it after. I keep thinking sometimes this weekend, but it's not. It's 12 days. 12 days till SummerSlam. So next week is the go home show for SummerSlam. Johnny will be back here on Tuesday night to talk about WWE NXT. The Diamond Dudes of Attitude cover all things AEW, and they also cover WCW Rewritten for some fun Facebooking stuff. We've got a great stream of interviews constantly coming to you guys, whether it's Bill Pritchard recently interviewing Matt Cardona, Iron V Ring of Honor host/wrestler Quinn McKay. Make sure to check that out. All these things and more, whether available on our various streaming platforms, whether it's SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, podcast, whatever, maybe we've got you covered. So, John, unlike last week, it was a lot easier to do the one thing we do here at WrestleZone, and that is what, John? I need you to tell me.
Enjoy wrestling.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.